So hey there.
Hey.
So today, for today's video of answering or responding to your unpopular opinions about season three, I wanted to have a guest that would talk about, well, first, obviously, talk about the opinions with me, but also talk about what's happening currently in Poland because I don't think that many people are aware. So, do you want to introduce yourself? Of course, drop your Instagram if you want, and tell us your experience there.
Yeah, sure. My name's Sophie. My Instagram is Paranoia Indukowana. It's in Polish, so I think it would be easier if it appears somewhere on the screen.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and I wanted to talk about the situation in Poland for a few minutes, as I said. This is a really broad and complex topic that could be discussed for hours, but I'll try to be as clear and as informative as possible. And also, I wanted to include a trigger warning beforehand, as I will be discussing subjects such as homophobia, transphobia, police brutality, and sexual assault. Basically, on October, like a week ago, there's been a new project by the Polish government regarding abortion laws. And up until now, abortion was possible in 3 cases: in case of incest or rape, in case the life of a pregnant person is in danger, or in case the fetus is in danger, or like in the possibility of some sort of deformation. And right now, the third option, which was the reason for about 98% of abortions, is to be forbidden. And they're planning to go even further as to delegalize it whatsoever. And this is the thing that sparked the protests happening right now, since people are not only mad about taking away their basic rights, but also the government's trying to implement it during the pandemic, when people are scared and concerned for their lives, and in many cases cannot go on streets to fight for themselves. And although this is what started it all, right now it's growing much bigger, and it seems like the straw that broke the camel's back in terms of Polish situation, and it's actually much worse than you think. So right now the riots are more about showing disagreement with our government. And I've personally been to protests 5 times now. I'm going again later today. And I live in a relatively big city, but like not as big as our capital, Warsaw, for example, so it's actually pretty safe here. However, riots in bigger cities are much more dangerous. People are going against the police. There's a high risk of being harassed and verbally assaulted. And right now the government is going as far as to encourage people to actively fight us, and even they hired a military police to go against the protesters. So a little bit of background on Polish situation now. Since our current reigning party is Law and Justice, they've been doing it for 4 years now, and they have been elected a few months ago for another 4 years. And the whole situation right now includes many issues, such as complete lack of sex education, as on basic biology in primary schools. Children are barely taught anything, and right now they're trying to implement prison punishment for teaching about things such as menstruation cycles, for example. It's pretty wild here.
It's extreme.
There's huge rape culture, there's faulty healthcare, lack of awareness about mental health, which is completely neglected here, especially the falling child psychiatry, terrible education system, xenophobia, Islamophobia, racism, sexism, misogyny, homophobia, transphobia, which I will get to in a minute in details, manipulation and propaganda in media, as it's connected with our right radical party, and they actively demonize all the leftist people, police brutality, the government not caring about COVID, which I will also get to in a minute. And yeah, so church is one of the main causes of that, because although theoretically the government is supposed to be secular, the Catholic Church has a huge influence on politics. They're actively hateful towards all the minorities. Priests are not charged for pedophilia. They cannot be arrested legally due to some sort of immunity. They don't pay any taxes, but they are involved in politics anyway, and that is a huge problem, because essentially it stops any field of development we could have, and it's the reason for most of the discrimination we're facing. And now I also wanted to talk about a specific situation regarding the LGBTQ rights and police brutality in Poland. So as I've said before, even though it's already terrible. People are highly homo and transphobic. There is misrepresentation in media. Cities are declaring themselves as zones free of LGBTQ+. On equality marches, people are getting beaten, pepper sprayed, bricks are thrown at them. Białystok Equality March was a huge thing, if you wanted to get into details. When I dyed my hair like purple, I was terrified to go outside because there is a belief that color-haired equals queer. And my friends who also have colored hair were harassed on the streets by nationalists' older men. So it's like ridiculous. And there are many of like tracks with slogans and slurs against queer people. So basically in August, a leftist non-binary activist called Margot vandalized one of these tracks as a form of protest. And it was a huge thing because they volunteered to be arrested for that, but the cops refused to do that. And instead, when they were walking home, the cops caught them and arrested them just to stir some sensation and show their power. And this also resulted in riots, as I said before, much more dangerous than the ones happening right now. The police started doing roundups with random people on the protests. They were unfairly kept in arrest. And there were also situations of, I think, either trans or non-binary people, I'm not sure, but they were not only getting misgendered in arrest, but also they were sexually assaulted by the police who were touching their genitals in a sexual way, making fun of them because like they didn't know what gender they were and they wanted to check. So it's gross and it's terrible. And oh my god, I don't have the time to discuss every single point right now, but the last thing I want to get into right now is the pandemic, because the government cannot handle it. It's like the schools were closed for a while, then we came back in September, now they're closed again, but all the restrictions are very random. The tests are very cheap quality and are often show incorrect results. Our healthcare is like frozen completely. Many people are scared to get tested and it's really messy. And also in 5 days, I think there will be new restrictions saying that all the private results have to be given to the government, but like only positive results. So not all the numbers of tests taken. So it will seem like there are more people sick, while in reality, it just more people are getting tested. And I'm not saying that it's just a manipulation tool so the government can say that the riots are causing pandemic to grow, but it kind of is. So yeah, I think that would be the most important issues discussed. I'm really scared of civil war right now, but I hope that this protest can maybe finally spark some change in our country, as it's really terrible.
Well, thank you for taking the time to share that with us. And listening to you, I got reminded of how it was here back in July when we had our protests. I attended like 3 of them and it was scary as all hell. It was really bad. Funny thing that you mentioned with the pandemic now, I got tested like, I don't know, 5-6 days ago because because I live in a dorm, we have to get like a medical checkup before we move in each year. And so the doctor here had me do a test for COVID and for the antibodies because I had a runny nose 2 weeks ago.
Oh my God.
So trust me, the healthcare system here is just as bad. Thankfully, the situation is it's not as like extreme as it is there, but I just find it really, I don't want to say disappointing, but kind of disappointing that it has not made world news, especially with people that boast about, fighting for people's rights, for women's rights, for queer people's rights, etc., but then they just ignore everything that's been happening in Poland since the elections, I would say.
Yeah, I agree. But also I'm not surprised because from what I've heard, as I said, the propaganda here is really bad, so even many of Polish people don't know what's happening if they only watch the news. And they're saying like the protests are only like 300 people while it's 10,000. So it's really messy.
Yeah, again, it's almost exactly the same as it was here. So now that we're done with the more important part, let's talk about some fuckery and Drag Race.
All right.
Hopefully we did not lose like half of the audience by now. The first opinion that I chose is that we're starting easy. Delta should have won the reading challenge. Now, do you remember the mini challenge that they're talking about?
Yeah, I rewatched it yesterday to get some context, and I don't really agree. I mean, I think Shangela deserved to win this one. I just thought she was much funnier, but I don't know. I mean, Delta was not terrible, but this reading challenge was like not excellent in general, in my opinion, at least.
Yeah, I think that season 3 did not have many, let's say, funny queens or queens that were there to show their to show their personality. It was more about, you know, being aesthetically pleasing to the eye. So yeah, I also think that Shangela, you know, she kind of did the best, or at least, you know, we were shown her best reads, and Delta was kind of the second best, I would say. So I understand why this person would say that they thought that Delta should have won that. But yeah, I think Shangela was the rightful winner, let's say, of that mini challenge.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay, so the next one, and this one will take us a little more time to go over. So Shangela should have been eliminated way earlier, and probably Carmen too. Now, what do you think?
I have mixed feelings on that, actually, because I remember when I was watching the season first, I kind of thought the same thing, but when I was thinking about it yesterday, I can think of a single challenge that they would be actually eliminated earlier on. I think there are people who went home earlier and it was deserving. I think their placements were pretty correct. I think what Shangela's main fault was that her runways were pretty average, especially in, as you said, the season really strong in fashion and aesthetics.
I can understand why they would think for Carmen, because she did place low, like a lot. A lot of the times she kind of just missed out on being in the bottom two, either because somebody else's look was worse than hers, or somebody else did worse than her in the challenge. But again, it's the case of, I understand why this person would think that, but I don't really agree with having Carmen or Shangela going earlier, especially because they were such good TV. Like, Shangela made the season. Carmen, with her constant, like, ditziness, also made the season. So yeah, I don't really agree, but I get it. Next one. And this one, I've got, like, I think I got 5 more of the same opinion, being like, Raja's Marie Antoinette look was not as astonishing as everybody says.
Okay, I do not agree on this. I love this look. I think it was like best drag runway, I think, and it was my favorite on this runway. I have cases with those earlier seasons when back then maybe it was groundbreaking or good, but they just grown poorly. But with Raja, I think most of her runways I still adore, so I don't agree with that.
Yeah, I don't agree with it either, because I think this runway of Raja's is my favorite, or like second, third favorite. But I have to ask you this: are there any looks of Raja's that you may not think were like as fantastic as everybody else would say? Because I do have one in mind. I just want to see if maybe your mind's at the same place.
I am not sure which one you're thinking, but personally, I'm thinking about the cake challenge, where I overall liked this look, but the undergarment was showing, and it was like, okay.
Yeah, that's the one that I was thinking of too. Also because of, I don't know why she chose to look bold on the runway. Her makeup, it looked a little scary, which did not make sense with the cake. So that's the one that I'm kind of like, I'm not sure if this is if this really was the best choice. Also, funny thing that you mentioned that, because she won the cake challenge.
She did. I thought Yara should have won this, personally.
Same. Absolutely same. So next one also has to do with Raja, but this one says that Raja's looks were overrated and she should have been called out for using tulle in the hairball. Do you remember the tulle gate thing with Raja, Shangela, and everything that happened in Untucked?
Actually, I have not seen Untucked of season 3 just because I can't watch it anywhere. I've been trying to look for it for a few days now, but I couldn't find it, so I'm not sure about the tulle.
Basically, in the Untucked, I think Yara it was that mentioned that Raja used fabric in her look where they were not supposed to use fabric but just use hair. And Shangela was like, I'll ask her. And she asked Raja if she was using hair or if that was some type of a fabric. And Raja was like, yeah, I used the tulle from the wigs, like the lace front kind of thing to make it like a mesh fabric that she can use in her look.
I'm pretty confused right now because I mean, it looks like it was 100% her to me.
Yeah.
And also, it's
yeah.
like, it's not exactly going against the rules, I think, if it was the lace front. So, as you said, it was just really smart.
Yeah, that's why I think they did not call her out on it, because they were like, here are the wigs and use that to make an outfit. And she was like, I'm gonna use the whole wig. But Raja's looks are overrated. I don't think so. I think, God, Raja's looks were so fantastic.
Yeah, I agree.
Do you have a favorite look of hers from that season, or just like maybe in general from Fashion Photo Review or anything?
I'm trying to think right now because I liked most of her looks, but yeah, the one that really stuck in my mind, I think, was the Marie Antoinette one. So even though it's like basic, I think it's amazing. And
it's also something that by that point, that we have not seen on the runway on Drag Race. So I think there's that sort of wow factor there too. There's this one look from Fashion Photo Review. If I remember to find it and include it in the video, I will. But it's kind of basic. But basically, Raja has this really long blonde wig on, like platinum blonde completely. She has this sort of pinkish dress on, and then with her skin tone, she basically looks like Paris Hilton if Paris Hilton never, did the drugs.
Oh my God.
Raja's looks are not overrated, I don't think.
Yeah.
No, I don't agree with this one. Okay, so next one. Again, Raja, god damn it. So, Raja was overrated and should not have won the Christmas and the Cake Challenge, but should have won Snatch Game. Do you think that she should not have won the first episode's challenge?
I think she should have won the first episode's challenge. I mean, I think her look was the best. Like, Mimi's look was also good, I think. She had a great concept, but the camp kind of bordered on poor quality and kind of homemade, while Raja's execution was excellent in my opinion. So I don't think I agree with this one, but I agree with the cake challenge.
Yeah, same. As you said, for the Christmas challenge, Manila also looked great on the runway there, but Raja just looked like a high fashion model.
Yeah.
You could not compete with that. But do you think that Raja should have won Snatch Game?
Honestly, as well as the reading challenge, the Snatch Game was really forgettable to me. I think they went with Stacey winning the Snatch Game mostly because of storyline reasons, like she was low and then Snatch Game was kind of her last chance, so if she did well, she won that, and then she got eliminated right after. But also, I think it was actually the critic they had for Raja that since she personally knows Tyra, it would be like she could have gone further with it, while I think she was playing it safe, kind of.
I think there was a note of her being like, I'm not going to offend my friend. The only thing that I think could have sort of switched the winner and the high placement, meaning that Raja could have won Snatch Game and Stacey could have just been high, was the runway.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess we partially agree with this one. On some aspects. Yeah. This next one is in French. I don't speak French, so I'm not going to try to read it out, but basically it says that Mimi should have won the first episode's main challenge, which we just talked about.
Yeah, so as I said, I think Raja deserved to win this one, and Mimi, great concept, but poor execution.
With this opinion, there were also a couple of others that similarly were like that Mimi should have won the first episode challenge or even the second episode's challenge, the acting challenge.
Yeah, I was sure she was gonna win the second episode's challenge, actually. I think she was really good in that one, but the runway was kind of... it was
interesting.
Good. Yeah, interesting. That's the word I was looking for.
I think they needed to have Shangela win that because she was previously in the bottom two, and, it was that whole thing. But yeah, I think it would have made sense if Mimi had won that episode's maxi challenge. But then, if she did win that, she then would have had immunity and would not have been eliminated in episode 3, and that's a whole ass thing that we it would take a lot for us to talk about, so let's
Yeah.
not get into it. Next one is in Spanish, and it goes, Yara debería haber ganado más challenges. Basically, that Yara should have won more challenges.
As I said before, I think she should have won the cake challenge, but I'm not sure which else. I mean, she was high a lot, as far as I remember, but it was like there was always someone who was like kind of better than her.
Yeah, I think that's the main point here, that other than the cake challenge, it was like Yara did well mostly in those like look-based challenges. Or, for example, the, what was it called? The news challenge that Manila won. I think, as you said, it's the case of somebody being just a tad bit better than Yara. This one is a little of a broader opinion that just says Season 3 is a boring season.
Okay, I do not agree on this one. Season 3 is one of my favorite seasons, actually. It was the hardest season for sure, because they had like double Shantae, then 2 balls, a returning queen, and next to that, the cast was also really strong. Maybe if I would give some credit to that opinion, it was maybe because, as you said, there was not many of the comedy queens. So, like, the snatch game kind of flopped, and then the reading challenge kind of flopped. I wouldn't say so. I think it was a pretty good season.
Same. I mean, the earlier seasons for me, like the first, let's say, 5 or 6 seasons are just fantastic and really easy to rewatch. And I think that maybe from today's perspective of being like, oh, we need to have a comedy queen, a pageant queen, this type of a queen. Season 3 did not really have that. It just had well-rounded, rather talented queens that could all possibly do well in every single challenge, but it was mostly about these sort of little finesses and who did better at this, who did better at that. And I think that's what made the season so enjoyable, at least for me, and I guess for you too, but not for this person. I don't really know what about it would have been boring, other than maybe, you know, the lack of full-on comedy camp queens. I mean, at least for me, the runways and the way that the queens interacted with each other, that was really fun. Like, we had cliques in this season. Like, there were literally...
Yes!
The cast divided itself, and there was a bit of a feud there. Like, that was organic. It wasn't produced. They did not, like, agree to do that, like with Trinity and Gia's made-up fight on All Stars 4. But yeah, Season 3 boring? No, I don't think so. Shangela was playing the victim card most of the time, and she still was extremely unlikable.
Okay, I don't want to get hated for this, but I've never really been a fan of Shangela. I mean, I get why people like her, because she's really charismatic and really talented and hardworking. But I know I've watched All Stars 3 before Season 3, and her stance kind of ruined it for me, because they can go pretty wild.
Yeah.
But beside that, I'm pretty neutral on her. I'm not sure about the victim card, because, as I said, I have not seen Untagged, except for maybe I can think of like the situation with Mimi, which I never really got. Like, she just went ravenous on her for no reason.
Yeah, the sugar daddy thing.
But, yeah. So I get why some people can be upset about that whole steering drama under the facade of keeping it real. But also, it was kind of like a role she assigned to herself. Like, it made for great television. So I think she did her job here, and people need to like recognize that TV persona is kind of different than the real person. But, yeah.
I wouldn't say that she was playing the victim card most of the time. Maybe sometimes, sure, but then at the same time, the queens on her season were literally telling her that she should be on Season 5 or 6, like not Season 3. And they were, I don't know, like making fun of the fact that people were helping her with her hair, with her makeup, with this and that. Like, she's in the competition with you. If she was really, you know, ranks below you or whatever, then she would not have been there. There definitely was a note of other queens kind of attacking Shangela for really no reason whatsoever. Yeah, sometimes she did kind of go a little too far. just sometimes, like you said with Mimi. Season 3 should have been the only season with a double crowning.
I couldn't agree more with this. I mean, okay, I was personally rooting for Manila. She's like my favorite Ru girl ever, so maybe I'm a little biased. And I also understand why Raja won, but at the same time, I think if there was to be any season with double crowning, it would be this one, because it was the most deserving in my opinion. I think the only reason they didn't do that was because it was kind of too early for that. Like, maybe they were like, okay, let's save it for further seasons, but then the perfect occasion never came, so they just wasted it on All Stars 4, I guess.
I love that you said wasted it. I love your choice of words. Yeah, I also agree that Manila and Raja getting a double crowning, it would not have just shown how different they are and how both of them were deserving of winning. Because, you know, you have Manila with her really good looks, but they're more on the campy side, while Raja is more on the fashion side. So it's like the theme of the season being like, you know, fashion, design, and whatever. But then you have these two avenues that they both excel at, and they're both great representations of that. So in that way, I can see it being like, okay, yeah, we have to, well, not have to, but crowning the both of them would make sense for the season. But then I think I would feel bad for Alexis Mateo. Like, yeah, so maybe they, you know, because of the format back then of being a top 3 and then somebody being chosen not to lip sync in the top 2, it would have been kind of shitty to have her just like stand there in the back and be like, yeah, you don't get the crown, sweetie. Season 3 episode 1 should have had a double sashay. One did not improve in a year, that being Shangela, and one assaulted 2 people, that being Venus D-Lite. I don't know if a double sashay in the first episode is kind of the smartest choice. Maybe just like for the shock factor of it being the premiere and 2 queens going home. But yeah, I don't think they would have eliminated Shangela in the first episode for the second time. I think that would have been just like really shitty.
Yeah, I think we can all agree that this lip sync was terrible. It was so messy and not good. And I think that, as you said, maybe too early, like for the first episode, but also because it was Shangela, obviously. I always saw that as her kind of last chance. Like, if she was saved there and didn't win the next challenge, then she'd be out probably, but she won the next challenge, so she stayed for a long time and then did All Stars 3. It's mostly a case of that being the first episode for me, I think.
Also, I don't think that either of the queens, either Venus or Shangela, really care if they were eliminated first, because look at Shangela, she is so successful. She was the first drag queen at the Oscars, and Venus D-Lite literally had a documentary made about her. Like, wow.
Yeah, well, they're doing fine.
Never mind. Venus was on an episode of My Strange Addiction. But the point still stands. They're doing fine.
And that's it. That's the video.
Yeah. Thank you for talking about this today with me and sharing the whole situation like that's happening there. Please do stay safe, especially now, as you said, because of COVID and more people going out into the streets and the police and yada yada yada. God, it's a lot.
Yeah.
But thank you for watching and...
Thank you for watching.